What up, squad? Welcome back to the We Are Gods podcast. I'm excited about today's episode. We're going to get into the story of my man, Xavier Stoney, who experienced some really tough challenges in his life. He battled with epilepsy since he was 6 years old. And we're going to get deep into his story about how one speech that he gave in high school on the power of medical marijuana, on the power of marijuana in general, has changed his entire world. Fast forward now, he is the co-founder of a wellness center that he started with his dad, and we get deep into his story in his conversation. It's extremely motivating. He shares how his personal struggles with epilepsy led him to embracing that and using it to empower and to educate others in their healing journeys, right? And we also explore the deep connection between our inner worlds, right, the way that we think and feel, and how our physical reality actually manifests itself. All right, so without further ado, get ready to be inspired, get ready to be educated, and let's get right into this conversation with my man, Xavier Stoney. Tell me how you found yourself in the health and wellness industry, and tell me a little bit about what you got going on.
Of course. Well, I started the company with my father, right? It's a health and wellness center surrounded around using cannabis as medicine. So I help people get their medical marijuana cards. I educate them on cannabis from the biology, how it interacts with your body, the science, the history, the legalities, pretty much everything in your power to be able to know how to use cannabis responsibly. And how it started for me and why I'm so passionate about it, I've had epilepsy since I was 6 years old, right? And I've been on medicine, dealing with prescription meds, side effects, everything. I started taking pills when I was 12. I'm still dealing with it now. And I just wanted to look for alternative resources to be able to have more capability with addressing the issue. And then when I was in high school, so I switched from public school to private school in ninth grade, and I went to Norfolk Academy. And they had us do senior speeches, which means give a 7 to 9 speech about anything in a persuasive manner, right? Very preppy school, super preppy. And I did mine on the legalization of medical marijuana. Imagine me getting that approved there. I had to wear a shirt and tie, no jeans. It was that type of deal. And that was the first time I told my whole school that I have epilepsy, right? And I just told them, I brought up certain research that was done on marijuana, different testimonial cases, like Charlotte Figi. She had like 300 seizures a week when she was 14. And then she started taking cannabis products and it dropped to like 10 to 15 in a matter of weeks. And the government could not ignore that. So they started to find more research and results in THC's effects with little girls with epilepsy. So my friends knew me to have epilepsy. And I was like, why don't you smoke? I'm like, I don't know, man. I was very hesitant with addressing my body, especially something like the brain. We already don't know much about it, let alone a disordered one. So I was very hesitant with trying alternatives until I did the research. And that was a big step for me, was doing the research. And I was like, this is a no-brainer. Let me at least learn about it, tap into it. And then one day, this guy who's a grower came to my dad's restaurant. He was like, listen, we can work together. And my dad looked at me and was like, hey, we can work together. You and I, we both deal with our own ailments. My dad had prostate cancer. He was a cop. He got shot when he was working in New York. He had rheumatoid arthritis in both of his hips, just almost bedridden. Now he works out every day. My dad was a big weightlifter when we were kids. So that was also an inspiration for me to have good health, was I watched my dad be muscular, in shape. And then also with my older brother, like I told you about last time, my brother's 3 years older than me. And typical brother stuff, whether it's like bullying, shoving, whatever, for lack of a better term, right? Just growing up. And there was I'll call it an inspiration, right? For me to work out so I could beat him up. That was my exact initiative. There was just all these signs telling me that I'm just too weak, whether it was that or my mom showing a muscle and it's bigger than mine. A lot of these ego attacks that I had as a young teenager. And then that was motivation enough for me. And I think what a lot of people out here lack is motivation. And
Mm.
so even if it's childish, right? Because I did get to a point when I became the strongest member of my family, but I didn't want to beat them up no more. Developed
Yeah.
a great relationship, and just being in health and great shape was therapeutic. Also, whether it's being able to look at yourself in the mirror, being able to do an exercise, you don't get tired as often. But people aren't ready for that uncomfortability. And I
Mm.
believe we grow in our most uncomfortable moments. But that first step of being able to look at yourself and take accountability and say, I'm not the best version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
But then people don't like hearing that because they're like, I'm the worst version of myself right now. And it's hard
Yeah.
to get people to point out. It's very hard to tell somebody, hey, you're not in shape. You need to work out. How do you say that to somebody without them getting somewhat offended? That's why you
Yeah.
got to have life circumstance say it for you. Like if maybe one day you're running and then you walk up the steps and then you're like, hey, my heart's beating a little fast. It's a little wake up call. My
Mm-hmm.
wake up call was my brother and my
Mm-hmm.
dad. All these different factors. So where being in shape, health and wellness has always been with me. It's just now I have a career path to execute it and let people know, hey, I can be that bridge for you. We were talking about bridges. How long
Yeah.
does it take to build a bridge? It's not comfortable for that bridge. You and
Mm-hmm.
I, we got to be examples. And that's why I
Mm.
appreciate you allowing me to be here to share my story, because that's exactly why I do what I do. It's my story.
Yeah.
Epilepsy has led me to, I couldn't ignore my body, even if I
Mm.
believed I was doing everything right. Took my
Mm.
meds on time. I don't drink alcohol. I don't drive. There are a bunch of things that I have settled with in order for my safety, my health and wellness. So I had no choice but to address it. I couldn't just ignore it.
Mm.
A lot of people, it's very easy to ignore your health, especially when people tell you you're fine just the way you are. But then you hear that and it tickles the ears, but you either progress or regress. Pro
Mm-hmm.
Wellness Center stands for Progressive Restoration of Health. Because if
Mm.
you're doing nothing, age is going to make you become worse over time. So you got to first make that step of, I have a problem and it's my fault. That way you have the power to be like, I can control this. I can do better, but it's going to take some time and work. People like short results. People
Mm-hmm.
like just going to the gym once or twice and like, oh, now I'm in shape now. No, it's a habit. You got to break bad habits and create new ones, but that takes accountability. And I think a lot of people are incentivized to not take that.
Yeah, the discomfort of acknowledging parts of yourself that aren't ideal, let's say, right?
Right.
Parts of yourself that are not celebrated, parts of yourself that your ego struggles with accepting, or not even accepting, but just like looking at, right? Your ego doesn't like to hear what's wrong with you or to acknowledge anything that isn't perfect. Um, so that's why I tell people, like, transformation, it takes courage. It takes courage to have the conversations with yourself that you need in order to really kind of settle in on the fact that, hey, I need to make some changes. Right? It's so easy to just ignore it, right? Find a way to live around these ailments or these whatever, right? Because it's just so uncomfortable to acknowledge. And I tell people, and I encourage people, in their own time, um, to have these like really tough, honest conversations with themselves, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a big proponent of mental health. I've dealt with a lot of mental health issues in my life. And part of the mental health issues that I faced was because I was avoidant of my emotions. I was avoidant of like looking at myself in the face, in the eyes, and having that honest conversation with myself about the things that I was struggling with, the things that I needed to address about my character, about my physical form, my habits, just like the level of integrity that I was or wasn't living with at a point in time. Like avoiding these uncomfortable truths caused me to be fucking depressed, right? Because that energy has to go somewhere. And I was holding it and it was
Right.
manifesting in my body, right? It was manifesting with these subconscious self-sabotaging behaviors that I had no idea was connected to my mental and emotional worlds, right? So developing self-awareness is a big theme for, this podcast. Like, I'm a big advocate for mindfulness. I'm a big advocate for journaling. Just intentional self-reflection is so huge in transformation of any sort, right? Because what my man Jay say, right? You can't heal what you never reveal.
That's right, because you
You
don't
feel
know
what I'm
it's
saying?
broken.
You don't know, right? And it's a very scary, uncomfortable journey to figure out and to discover and to allow yourself to see the parts of yourself that needs to be addressed. So right now, I'm in a season of great transformation and healing, and it's one of the most uncomfortable things because I set an intention earlier this year. And when I tell you, God, the divine, Allah, source, whatever you want to call it, right, has definitely given me the opportunity to address these things, right? It's like we set this intention, right? I said, hey, listen, I want to tap into deeper levels of authenticity. I want to find more clarity and more confidence in my voice, and feeling more empowered in my mission, right, to serve people. So this call to be more authentic and to free myself from judgment and to calibrate my ego, like, I set these intentions not really understanding all that comes with that desire, right?
Right.
Bro, the shit that started coming up from my shadow, right? When I set
Ooh.
these intentions, you feel what I'm saying? The parts of
Yeah.
myself, I'm like, yeah, I want to work on, my mind's tendency to judge, right? I want to work on stepping deeper into my authentic self. And it's like, all right, well, you want that? Well, here, let me show you
What you asking for?
let me show you. And it's fucking uncomfortable, bro. It's scary. Listen, I've had a few seasons of like dark nights of the soul, right? They call them dark
Go
nights
ahead.
of the soul, right? Where it's just like, man, it's so hard to find words to articulate what those moments are like, but there's so much growth and transformation that happens by sitting in that uncomfortableness, right?
Yeah.
Seeing these parts of yourself, manifesting situations that fucking serve as a mirror, right? For me, it's normally through my romantic partners. You feel what I'm saying? I
Okay.
usually attract someone that mirrors my shit back to me in
The
the most
kindred
healing
spirits.
way.
Energy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm deep in one of those seasons right now where it's uncomfortable, but I've been here before. So I kind of know how to exist in the discomfort because I know that's where all the growth lies, but it's fucking hard. And that's really what I'm trying to communicate here is like growth, transformation, breaking, toxic patterns or improving your habits, and your mind registers that as an assault on your comfort, right? Because I said this in a video the other day. Our mind's job is to keep us alive,
Yeah.
right? Our mind's job is not to
Make us feel
empower
good.
us to grow and like, no, it's not exactly. Our mind is not designed to make us feel good. It's just not, right? It's designed to keep us comfortable, which our subconscious minds register as safety, right? Because so when we're starting that new, health routine, and it's totally different from what we've been doing for the last 10, 20 years, your mind is going to send you thoughts and create emotions that is designed to get you to retreat back to your comfort.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? So that's why I warn people like, yo, whenever you're setting off on any sort of journey to better yourself, get ready for your mind to attack you. It's an inevitable part of the process. And just practicing sitting in that discomfort is key, right? Because like I mentioned to you before, like I've created a lot of fucking issues in my life by avoiding sitting in the discomfort, right? I try to avoid it with food. I try to avoid it with Netflix. I try to avoid it with
Yeah.
women, right? I try to avoid it with alcohol, right? Or weed or whatever the case may be, right?
Mhm.
Abusing it, right? Um, and it wasn't until I really learned the value of just being with it, bro. Like,
Just
and my,
doing it.
yeah, man, my mindfulness practice and all of my intentional self-reflection habits and disciplines has been the key for me for that. So talk to me a little bit about what goes on in your inner world, right? Because
Right.
that's a concept that I'm trying to like really introduce to a lot of people, is like, because I remember not being aware or in touch with anything that was going on beyond the 3D, anything that was going on beyond the physical world that I can see and touch. I had no clue the impact that the activity of my mind and my emotions and my spirit, how that was manifesting my reality. So talk to me a little bit about your relationship with your inner world.
I like how you brought up two things. The ego is one. That's like our superficial or our fake self that we create to adapt to the community around us. So
Mm,
even right here, these are our egos talking to each other. But when we are home and we look at ourselves in the mirror, that's our real self. The person who's
mm,
in the shower, that's the real you. But a lot of people can't even tell the difference. So their existence is in their ego. When people say they have a big ego, that means you're coming off as something that you're really not. And that
mm,
threatens people's existence when you come
mm,
at their real self. Because they're like, hold on, I'm not the type of dude you could talk to like this. I'm not the type of dude who's a piece of shit in life or needs to grow or yada yada. Because everybody is giving me this positive reinforcement. Every time
mm,
I speak, even you give me positive reinforcement. Imagine if I lived in that to where my
mm,
whole perspective of myself depended on testimonials of other people.
mm,
We're just puzzles, yo.
mm,
There are a lot of pieces we don't know to people, and we give off who we are, but then there's authenticity. How real are you with no matter who you talk to? Like I could talk to you the same way I talk to my mom's, the same way I
mm,
talk to my client because I
mm,
want to be the real me. It got to a point very recently also to where just not caring about other people's opinions or
mm,
judgment of you because we use that to dictate what we do in life and make our
mhm,
decisions for us because we're afraid of other people approving it or not. Think about cancel culture. Why do you think people are so afraid of that? We think the number one fear of mankind is death. It's actually number three. The number one fear is public speaking
mhm,
because we are so intimidated by just a bunch of negative reinforcement of that guy's not good.
mm,
So since we fear that, if we look at ourselves and be like, I'm not good, your brain is responding to that in almost a survival instinct of like, wait, no, that's not good. You're supposed to make yourself feel good, not feel bad. And that's why they
mm,
don't want to get in those uncomfortable moments. Now, those uncomfortable moments, and that's the second thing that I like that you brought up, because there have been both aspects of me in which I put myself in uncomfortable moments, but I was also thrown in to uncomfortable moments with my epilepsy. Right? I didn't
mm,
ask for epilepsy. I didn't
mhm,
ask to wake up on the floor, pissing myself, seizing in the middle of a classroom in fifth grade.
mm,
I didn't
mhm,
ask for those things. I didn't ask to have to go to the hospital, and I'm a grown man. I'm 27 now, but I had to have my 18-year-old brother help me shower. Like there
mm,
are a lot of humbling moments that I've been put into that I really didn't ask for. But for me, it was almost like a survival instinct at the same time because when you have something like a brain disorder, it's hard to blame somebody else and it's hard to blame yourself at the same time. Am I going to blame my parents? How productive is that? Am I going to
mhm,
blame God? How productive is that? Am I going to blame myself? How productive is that? Actually, it's pretty productive. It took me until my adult ages to be like, where can I find responsibility in anything I'm in?
mm,
So it would also get to a time where I would have a seizure and I would be like, what could I have done better? Even if I did everything I'm doing correctly. And
mhm,
then it got to a point where I just started creating solutions out of nowhere. So I would have this episode and then I'd be like, maybe I should start reading more. Maybe I should drink water more. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe I'm doing something wrong because we're not perfect. we can always find opportunities to grow. So whenever I'm in these uncomfortable moments, I correlate that with growth. So anytime any uncomfortable moments happen, I search for growth instead of searching for blame. There's a great book that I credit to changing my life. It's called The Power of Now by Eckhart
Eckhart
Tolle.
Tolle.
Love that book because it
Yeah.
shows you that the only thing that exists is not yesterday, is not tomorrow, just you and me right here. This is the only thing that's reality. It's just that we get our minds out of reality for a second to cope with existence because not a lot of people are fans of the present moment because the present moment got problems too. You just don't want to look at them. And then when other
Yeah.
people, they don't want to tell you, hey, you got problems because
Mm-hmm.
then the ego responds, I don't got problems, you got problems.
Mm-hmm.
This,
Mm-hmm.
that, and the third. So it's crazy how it's a mixture of both because there was a point in time where I couldn't even say the word seizure. You could even maybe hear me hesitate now, but it was a point where I was in denial of my whole existence because I just really felt embarrassed or like this isn't the real me. And then I started to accept that. I'm like, this is me. This is the body that God gave me, whether I like it or not. You got your cards. How you gonna play them? Don't talk about other people's cards or the potential cards you could be having. That is irrelevant. But we want to put ourselves in the victim mindset so much that we want to find outside factors because we feel like we're not in control. So we make ourselves not in control. But it's easy to not be in control because you don't have to do nothing. You just live with
Yeah.
it. Take some depression pills or something. Don't actually look at the root cause, which is ourselves. Even if there's no problem, create a problem because you can create solutions. I'm a man of solutions, not excuses. You
Yeah.
know? And it took me a really long time to get here at this place. I'm talking about like it's been a few weeks since I've been in this place. I had a procedure done called an EEG, right? So they pretty much tried to induce me to have a seizure while they all these prongs are stuck to my head and my heart so they can measure where the seizures are coming from. So I was only allowed to sleep from like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. So I had to be awake 20 hours a day. I had to be dehydrated. I couldn't eat as much. They did flashing lights in my eyes. One of the most uncomfortable experiences that I had ever.
And when was this?
This was like 2, 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
Like this was very recent. And coming out of that hospital, because I was bedridden for 5 days, I had to press a button to use the bathroom. And the nurse had to be with me while I was using the bathroom. I'm like, wow, this is really humbling. I didn't really ask for this, but this is like, yo, everything you got going on outside that hospital, it ain't with you right now. This is the human Xavier, not the person Xavier that people know. And it was just me in that hospital bed. Granted, my mother was there. God bless her. Because, man, I don't know how much she does for me. I can't even measure it. She slept on an uncomfortable couch right next to me for the whole 5 days. And it's just, God bless her in every way, shape, or form.
That's beautiful, bro. Nah, you said a lot of amazing, insightful things, bro. So first thing I want to kind of talk about is the Eckhart Tolle concept. Well, it's not his concept, but the concept of being present,
Yeah.
right? That was a concept that I used to hear a lot about, right? People saying, don't be in the future, don't be in the past, be present, right? The peace and the bliss and the joy is in the present moment. And I remember not understanding that, right? So, and I know this is a lot of people listening right now that have heard it from me, heard it from you, heard it from different places, but they don't really quite understand the value of being in the present moment. I read this quote. It says, depression is when you are grounded in the past and anxiety is when you are worried about the future, something like that. Right.
Indeed.
And everything we need, joy, peace, is in the present moment, right? Our existence and our entire existence is happening in the present moment and no other and nowhere else. So if you were to try to explain that concept of being present, right? Because mindfulness, I'm real big. I do breath work every day, right?
Nice.
I use certain tools to help me navigate the challenges of life, and it's almost everything I use anchors me into the present. Like that's the goal. Whenever I'm feeling anxious, when I'm feeling depressed, when I'm feeling any sort of like heightened emotions, I connect with my breath as a means to ground myself into the present moment. So what is the present moment? If someone's like, yo, Xavier, what does that mean, bro? Like what
Gotcha.
does that sound like?
Of course. So pretty much you have to understand first that time is a concept, right? It's not reality. It's just a scientific method to measure distance. How long, if I roll this ball, how long will it take to reach this distance? That's how it really started. But now we've like engulfed ourselves in this concept so much that it creates our actions and our reality and things. So first, so I like how you brought up joy, right? So what joy is a combination of contentment and happiness. So contentment really means accepting what is. I had my journey of being pessimistic to realistic to optimistic, right? I had my journey going along there. And then happiness is a choice. You can choose to be happy about what you got going on. Man, the sky's real blue today, and I really like that. It's nice weather out. I like, my mother called me. I really like that. And contentment is, you know what? Life is what it is. I got the cards. I'm dealt. I got epilepsy. I'm not happy about that, but I'm happy that I'm still breathing. Every day I wake up, I read my scripture, and I'm happy. God is with me all the time. So you really got to look at, it's just being appreciative of what you have, not what you don't. And another thing that knocks people is when they compare themselves to other people. Because someone's always going to have it better. Somebody's always going to have it worse, but it's subjective. Because people can look at me as like, wow, Xavier, I wish I was like you. Really? Hasn't been easy being me. I'm going to tell you. But there are other people who have better things. Like for one of my biggest stressors is not being able to drive. It limits me from my business. It limits me from my social life. It limits me from financial opportunities, all of that. But then it took a while for me to be like, some people can't walk, you know? So what do they think about people who they see walking every day? And that was the first step. But the next step was some people have had chauffeurs their entire lives. They don't worry about driving. They got privilege. They don't worry about none of that. They don't worry about school money. They just got it. So when you compare yourself, it's meaningless at the end of the day because somebody's always going to have it better and someone's always going to have it worse. So when you compare yourself to other people, you look at the past, your past perspectives of people you know, whether they're people you don't know like celebrities or your friends or just acquaintances. And then the futures, you're worried about who you're going to be. Oh, I imagined myself a millionaire at 28. How come I'm not close to that yet? Like, you don't know the future. It's not there. The world could be gone tomorrow and you would have no idea. The past is just your brain collecting memories to be able to survive in the current state you're in. Oh, this person I've recognized before. This song I've heard before. This job I've seen someone get it before. It's just information based. But it doesn't control how you live life. Life is in the present moment. Life is here. And that's all it's going to be. So when you put yourself in that mindset of, what am I doing right now? Right now is the only thing that exists. Then you just have so much more control and it's just so much more blissful. Even though there's that accountability, once you accept that accountability, and that's the biggest step people can't take. Look, I'm at where I'm at in life because of me. Even if that doesn't make sense to you. But you're like, hey, listen, when I do good, it's also my fault too. So let me keep this mindset of, it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault. Because success is going to be your fault. It's going to be your fault. Failure, success, find any way to find accountability because then you can progress.
I challenge you to remove the word fault
Got it?
from that, right? Because it's more just a radical acceptance of what is, period, right? And I think, and I want to kind of shift gears, right? You talk about your perspective, right? It's like, I think our life experience is so reliant on the perspective that we choose.
Of course.
You
Life
know,
is perspective.
it's all about perspective. And I think a thing that fuels your perspective is your attitude, right? And
Yeah.
I think your attitude, like you said, like happiness is a choice. Your attitude is a choice as well,
Correct.
right? I think we all are born with certain circumstances that contribute, that like, note that I say contribute, that
Right.
contributes to our life experience, but not necessarily creates our life experience. I think our life experience, we have so much more control over our life experience than we really exercise, you
Absolutely.
know? And but I think your story is a powerful testimony to that, because you could have been like, man, I was born with this condition and it led to these challenging situations, and now I can't drive, or this, like, your attitude about it could be completely, you know, and you could be in the dumps about the entire situation, but you're choosing to find a way to not just, accept, but to use it as a power, right?
Right.
Because now you're able to leverage your story, right? Which makes your words a little bit more credible, because you have experienced challenge, a lot of the challenge that, people can't navigate, can't handle, and they use it and it destroys them. You've found a way to leverage that, and now you're serving people with it, right? But the power of that, man, choosing the right attitude is so for someone who's struggling right now, like, man, they got all of these un um these un ideal, let's just say, like, not ideal situations in their life, whether it be health conditions, or they may be like me, born with, parents who, born in a very challenging situation where there was a lot of abuse. And what do you say to a person who has what they perceive as all of these things stacked against them? Like, what do you say to help them access a better perspective, a better attitude about their
Right.
life?
So when you said down in the dumps, right? Because you could be down. I was there. I was in those moments where I would be in agonizing pain, whether it's through the migraines or the stomach aches or just the seizures themselves. I was in a very big woe is me type of perspective. So I've been there, so I really understand what it is. But then I found out I couldn't really do nothing about that woe is me feeling by staying in that woe is me
Mm,
feeling. That
mm,
sympathy, it really did nothing for me. Like, even my approach with venting, just talking about my problems and not wanting a response, it made me more upset. Because if you just tell me, oh man, that sucks, like, it's, what does it really do? You know? So when I say fault, it's kind of like almost artificial or imaginary. I just make it my
mm,
fault just because then I can find lessons with it or create my own lessons, even if it has nothing to do. This is an opportunity to read more. It has nothing to do with my epilepsy, but it has to do with me and my body, my brain, in a sense. So you can either turn an experience into wisdom or trauma. Trauma keeps you stuck in the past, but it affects the present. Everything in your mindset affects the present, even if you don't realize it. So, what I tell people is focus on the things that you can control. Because the only thing we stress about are things that we can't control, which is what other people do and how other people respond to what we do. And a lot of the things that people crave, whether they realize it or not, is positive reinforcement.
mm,
If I tell you something, I want you to tell me, oh, good job, or you're the victim. And now positive reinforcement has completely changed. Now
mhm,
it's okay to be the victim. In fact, it's encouraged. So now, oh, you don't like the way you look? That's other people's problems, not you. And if there's other people's problems, those people can solve it, not you. Make it your problem. Because, like you said, people have different. I don't like comparative suffering because I can't tell somebody, hey, you don't have epilepsy, you have it better in life than me. Because that person, I've had both my parents in my life, and I think that is such a blessing for me. And
mm,
some people, that can affect them mentally way worse than mine does. So it's all about the tools and how you approach it, whether it's with my wellness center, like I use cannabis as a tool. Because just like a tool, anything, it can be used to help you or hurt you. Like a knife. You can use a
Mm-hmm.
knife to kill somebody, you can use it to cut up vegetables. You decide. It's a perspective. So I chose to take my struggle and make it into something productive, and then that encouraged me to be passionate about helping other people with it. So they don't have to go through those experiences. There are lessons I learned from my dad when he grew up in the streets. I didn't grow up in the streets, but I learned street life lessons from him. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that I didn't have to go through that to learn it. So whenever I talk to anybody, you don't have to have epilepsy to learn what I learned. But I'll tell you what I learned through having epilepsy, and something that is completely me. Now, at first, when I was younger, it was, yeah, my brother beats me up. I didn't really care. It's called growing up with a brother, you know? But then epilepsy, it's a little bit different. I don't know that many people with epilepsy, taking medications, not driving, always have to worry about where you are. Like if my mom calls me and I don't pick up, I cause her panic. I don't like that. I don't like when I have
Mm-hmm.
episodes and my mother is scared of not being able to communicate with me, but I'm in a business meeting. So the trauma I've caused on other people also messes me up, even today. But I can't control it. That's what stress is you're trying to control something that you can't. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where this anxiety comes from. That's where this depression comes from, because you're trying to control how people look at you. Don't control how you look at yourself. And then the other things are just byproducts, because you can tell when someone is secure in who they are, and then people want to be like them. When they
Mm-hmm.
don't understand is there's never going to be another you, and there never has been. What you have to be is great at being yourself. But when you're not going to look at yourself, the good, bad, and ugly, how are you going to be good at something you won't even look at?
Mm-hmm.
You're focused on other people looking at you. Just be real with yourself, be genuine, be honest, have a great relationship. My relationship is with God, and when I've been struggling physically and mentally, He's been there for me. And I give credibility to Jesus for that. And that's just me personally, like personal conversations type shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and
yeah.
one thing I always hear is, I got you, or
Mm-hmm.
you gonna be all right.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are going to be all right. Even if you don't think you are, you're going to be good. Whether you
Yeah.
make yourself good, the higher power makes you feel good, or you got friends that help you be productive in life. But there are times you got to depend on yourself, especially when it comes to problems with yourself. And that's something I had to learn by banging my head against my shower tile, or like having an episode. And there have been times where I wake up and I'm on the floor, my tongue's bleeding. I'm like, what just happened? Oh, yeah, that just happened. Again. I took my
Mm-hmm.
meds. It happens again. What's happening?
Mm-hmm.
But you just have to take accountability. And I know it sounds simple, but it's a complex situation. It's not easy. It's very simple. Just do you.
So what are the tools that you use to go from pessimistic woe is me to now having this more empowering outlook on life?
It was really, the tool is my mindset. And a lot of
Yeah, but
people
how
say,
did you develop that? Yeah,
right.
is basically what I'm asking, I guess.
It had to take a lot of humbling moments and me recognizing that me being upset isn't going to isn't going to solve the problem. It just lets you know there is one. Okay, now what? But when you're
Mm-hmm.
stuck in that first step of like, oh, woe is me. Okay, what do you do about it? Oh, nothing. Like, it sounds so blunt and harsh, but your problem isn't as big as the deal as you're making it out to be.
Mm-mm.
Because your
Mm-mm.
problem can turn into what you and I are doing right now, into life lessons and wisdom, and help other people deal with similar problems. People underestimate themselves so much. How
Mm-hmm.
much potential we have is really up to us. When we were younger, we heard the teacher say, "You could be president one day." That's real shit. You could
Mm-hmm.
be the
Facts.
best president that's ever existed, and you don't even know it yet, but you are
Mm-hmm.
not your biggest fan. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be your biggest fan, your biggest cheerleader, your biggest coach, whatever you want to call it. Whether it's your real self talking to your ego, or God is behind you because He always is, helping you carrying that cross.
So one of the things that I think changed my world the most was identifying my self-limiting beliefs, right? And all the conditioned roadblocks that were installed into my my subconscious mind. And like, I'm still in the process of healing from a lot of the shit that happened during my childhood that helped create my mindset and my attitudes about life. Like, I'm still working on removing blocks from my subconscious mind. And I say that to empower people who are struggling with this idea that they're not where they're supposed to be. And I'm just like a believer that everything unfolds exactly how it's supposed to.
That's right.
And I think the comparison is the source or the thief of the joy. You feel what I'm saying? That we have access to at all times. It's like, you got to love yourself. And, obviously I work with a lot of folks in the weight loss space. And I tell them, like, yo, you cannot hate yourself to a new body.
No, you can't.
It has to be a labor of love. Every workout, every healthy eating choice, every input that you invest into that goal has to be fueled with this energy of love for yourself and respect for yourself. And I think that's the thing, right? When people ask me, like, yo, what's success to you? I always talk about just having access to this level of acceptance for myself and being in a position now where I can leverage challenging moments to serve people is success to me. Knowing that I have the tools to access bliss in any moment, no matter what is going on in my life, like, I can access bliss no matter what is happening. And I've taught myself how to do that. To me, that's success, right? The meaningful relationships that I have in my life, right? The tribe that I've built is success. My mindset, my perspective on life, right? Just me reforging my identity that is based on what is true to me. That is not just based on, the story that I'm, some hood nigga from Brownsville, Brooklyn, who X, Y, and Z. Like, that's no longer the lens that I choose to live my life through anymore. And it's the most empowering thing. So when we talk about the concept of success, what does that mean to you?
Success is, for me, it's a choice. A lot of people brushing their teeth is success. A lot of people just getting up and not drinking or not eating that sugary product is success. You decide what success is for yourself. Now, I'm more so of a person of purpose, right? And I believe we all have the same purpose, just different executions of it. I think it's taking our life experience, which is our talents, our wisdom, and everything, and helping the community with them. So that's success for me, is the fact that I go through what I go through and I'm able to help other people just with it. But I'm also not in a, hey, let me tell you what to do type thing. Because I get a lot of times with my clients when they have these issues and I'm not very persuasive. I'm more informative. I'm like, this is my struggle. This is how I approached it and it worked for me. Maybe it don't work for you, but the core premise of it first is the acceptance part. And I love how you said self-love, because that's a big, hard step for people, is to look at, because you have to love everything about them. You can't just love the good. You can't just hate the ugly. You have to love all of yourself. And then I think that's real success, is self-love, because everything else just falls into place.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, bro, I want to thank you for your time, bro, your testimony. You're wise beyond your years. I'm sure you hear that all the time.
I do. But I hang around a lot of older people.
Yeah. I know your parents are extremely proud of you. I'm proud of you, bro.
Thank you.
And however I can contribute to anything you got going on, bro. I don't play tennis, but I'm kind of ill with the pickleball. You feel me? Like
Ah, come
I'll be
on. That's
I'll
like
be
you
getting
telling
my
me you're good at
pickleball
ping
game
pong.
up.
I don't need to hear that. Well, I'm not good at basketball, but I know the arcade stuff I'm good at. Yeah, man.
I feel you, but you know, I was introduced to that game anyway. I digress. But
Yeah.
yeah, bro, super grateful to cross paths with you. And where can people find you, bro? Where can they follow you online?
So my personal Instagram is Zaystoney23. That's ZAYYSTONEY 23. That also has all of my business pages on there. Going back to Pro Wellness Center, which is my cannabis wellness center. So if you're ever in need of a medical marijuana card, or if you ever want to learn more about cannabis, I have a page on there called Pro Info. Gives you a bunch of information from the biology of the human body to the history of marijuana. You'll put yourself more than 90% at least individuals who have any concept about what marijuana is. And like you brought up tennis, I also have a nonprofit foundation where I teach kids tennis for free and their parents as well every Saturday at 12 o'clock. That's pretty much where you can contact me at my page. My work number is 757-842-6163. I do consultation also, so I'm always down for conversation. That's why I appreciate you inviting me here, Robert, because anytime I get a chance to speak, it's self-serving also. Because it's
Mm,
almost reassuring hearing myself say it out loud
yeah.
that this is who you are.
I
You're who
love that.
you are. I'm who I am, and that's all I'm ever gonna be. And I've
Mm-hmm.
accepted it. I love it, but it took a long time to get here, man.
Mm,
It took a lot of responsibility and effort, and let's be honest, shitty moments that
mm-hmm.
I've had in life. And not a lot of people have those shitty moments to where they learn, but you can just give yourself the perspective of appreciation and humility to further your goals. And I believe anybody watching this can be successful in whatever they want. It's just a matter of choice.
For sure, bro. And all of his contact information will be in the show notes. And yeah, I appreciate you guys for watching. Screenshot the podcast, share it with me on Instagram. And as always, the body, the life you want is owned by a higher version of yourself. So continue to evolve.